Good morning. Welcome to Fearless and Free TV. My guest this morning, Kimberly Palm, was not able to make it today, so we are rescheduling her for another time. So I decided to go ahead and broadcast myself. You have me for a monologue until, I don't know if I'll be able to talk for an hour or not on any particular subject. I really prefer the conversations because I think they're so much more interesting than just a monologue. However, I'm here and I will do my best to entertain you with the subject matter that I've been feeling called to talk about today. So what I'm feeling called to talk about today is the current financial situation on our planet and what many of us have been expecting for quite a few years. So I'm going to be talking about the financial reset, the Great Reset as it's being called, the global financial reset, the global currency reset, the RV, NESARA, GESARA, all that stuff. So some of us have been following this for a few years. This might be brand new information for some of you that are watching. So I'm going to do my best with information that I have learned over the last 10 years of being involved with the prosperity systems to be able to explain to all of you what's happening in the world of finance right now and what has been over the last 10 years, as far as I know. Now, with the financial systems, this isn't something that's just been happening over the last 10, 20, 30 years. I find it fascinating that people are talking about the corruption that's occurred the last couple of decades, when really this is what's been happening for thousands and thousands of years. What we're experiencing right now is a culmination of the fear and darkness that came to our planet thousands of years ago. So it's just now coming to a head because we are creating an entirely new world. And in this new world, it is based in love rather than fear. So we're moving out of a fear-based reality and into a love-based reality. But we are presently in that transition process. So we essentially entered the new Earth on December 21st. When the planet entered the age of Aquarius, all of us were given the opportunity to enter the age of Aquarius as well. You know the song, Welcome to the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius? It's not the dawning anymore. We are actually here in the age of Aquarius. And so we're creating an entirely new world that is based in love and peace and harmony and prosperity for all life on Earth, rather than just the lucky few. So I'm going to get really quick into the difference between the Great Reset, which is also referred to as the global financial reset, and the global currency reset, two very different things. So those of us that have been involved with the financial systems for the last 10 plus years, I know people have been involved with it, trying to understand it for the last 20 or 30 years, is that we've known for a long time that all of our systems need a reset. So we've been calling it a reset for a very long time. We've also used the term reboot, because our systems all need to be rebooted. Literally, the visual I'm getting is that our systems need to be kicked in the butt and, a boot to the butt and rebooted. Anyway, I see funny visuals sometimes, but I'm seeing a boot the systems getting the boot and reboot. A big boot in the butt. And so anyway, that's where we are, is we're in the process of resetting and rebooting all of our systems so that they can be recreated in love rather than fear. So presently, all of our systems are fear-based. And for most people, I don't think they even recognize that. But when you start to get really, really good at recognizing what fear looks like, you can see that all of our systems, every single one of them, are based in fear and control rather than love and freedom. So that's where we are. We are at a decision point of which reality we are going to choose. Some people are going to consciously choose the fear and control reality because of it's being disguised. That's the dark side disguising that as light and love. Deception is so good at what it does that it's really difficult to recognize. So one system, the old systems that have been created are the dark, using safety and security as the disguise for control. And so when we start looking at the global currency reset, the global reset, as it's being called, the Great Reset, understand that that both sides of this coin know that the systems need to be reset. They need to be rebooted. The systems as they currently exist do not work and do not support the whole of humanity. None of them do. All of our systems support the people at the top and siphon from the people at the bottom. The trickle-down theory is just that. It is a deception. It's really about filtering from the bottom up to feed the people at the top. So that system has to collapse. And the new systems that's being created in the light looks more like a vessel. So it actually grows for all of life to prosper rather than just the few. And so the global reset is something to really, really be to look at with discernment. We are past the age of information. We've been bombarded with the information age for the last 20 plus years. We're now well into the age of discernment, and this requires every single one of us to look very, very closely at everything that we are being presented and be willing to look at both sides of everything that's being presented. Because one of the things that's happened in the last, well, since 2012, since the fourth dimension converged with the third dimension, is that we have gone into a duality reality. So everything on our planet is now in duality. And the only way to move past that is if we're willing to look at both sides and look at the entire story, where all of our systems, all of our media, all of our social systems are trying to push us into division. That division is intentional, because if we become unified, we become stronger than the powers that be. So in order to gain your full power, it requires that you be willing to look at both sides. And this is very, very uncomfortable for people, because they want to cling to the one side that they're a part of without being willing to take a look at the entire perspective. So I'm suggesting that rather than just having your one little myopic view to all the way to the right or all the way to the left, to be willing to look at the whole entire perspective and understand the entire perspective, because only from absolute understanding are we able to really move forward collectively and consciously. So when it comes to the Great Reset, my understanding is that there are going to be government programs that are going to be made available for people to access. And just as with the present response to the virus, it is a program that all people are being given to access. So my suggestion is that when you're given the opportunity to access any of these programs, to look very, very, very carefully into them, read the fine print in everything. So one of the things that's going to be happening with resets on both sides is that we'll be given the opportunity to have all of our student loans erased if we have student loans. The possibility that all of our credit cards will be, debt will be erased. Basically, it's kind of like global debt forgiveness. So it's really important just to understand what comes with that. What are the strings attached to those payoffs? One thing that came through me this morning was that there's a possibility that people will have their mortgages paid off, and in exchange for having your mortgage paid off, the government gets to keep your house. In exchange for having a place to live for free, the government owns where you live. So that would be an excellent solution to homelessness. And is that a solution that's really best for everyone? Because are you willing to give up ownership of your house to the government in exchange for having them pay your mortgage off for you? So I'm not saying that's going to be the case. What I'm saying is that if you are given that opportunity to have your mortgage paid off or to get free housing, be very, very careful to look at the fine print and understand what you are giving up in exchange for that. It might be that you're not giving up in exchange for that. It just is debt forgiveness all across the board, which would be fantastic. However, knowing that our systems are based in fear and the systems are created to support the people at the top, look very carefully at what the fine print is behind those programs if you're offered the opportunity to take advantage of them. Because as I mentioned earlier, many times safety and security are really control disguised as safety and security. And there will be people who are more than willing to give up their freedom in exchange for that feeling of security. We've seen that in other communist countries where but once the control happens, it's next to impossible to get your freedoms back without a major uprising. So it's really important that all of us go into this with absolute clarity and understanding and discernment about the choices that we make, because we are at a choice point and we are at a point of where we need to make conscious, discerning choices about everything we do. Because the information that we're getting is all across the board, and there is deception in all of it, and there is truth in all of it. And so it requires us to begin really using the mental muscle of discernment, which is something we've never had to use before. We've always had free choice, but our free choice has been unconscious free choice. This is about conscious free choice, and really knowing what it is that you want and why you want it, and what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not willing to sacrifice. So that's it for the Great Reset. The GCR, the global currency reset, is entirely different. They are two very different things. And as I said earlier, the dark side, and I've said this before, the dark side uses our light language to deceive us into believing that their answers are the answers for what humanity needs. That's how good deception is. So we've been using the term reset for the 10 years that I've been involved, that a currency reset, which is about rebalancing all of the financial systems across the entire planet, so that every country and every person within that country basically has a fresh start, and it's all balanced. There isn't one country that's more powerful than another country. It gives every country the capacity to be mutually respective, and also be sovereign, rather than tied into the global systems that are presently trying to take over the planet. So this is all about pulling out of these global systems that are not based in light. There's a difference between one earth consciousness and one world order. They're two very, very different things. On the surface, they look almost identical, but underneath the surface, they are complete opposites. So again, this takes discernment to be able to recognize which one is which. One is all about control, and the other one is about freedom. The New World Order is control disguised as order, and safety and security, and doing what's best for humanity. The New Earth Consciousness is all about freedom and solidarity and unity, and doing what's best for all life on Earth from a space of love and freedom, rather than from fear and control. So it requires each one of us doing the depth of work to know which system we are supporting. And if we're supporting the One Earth Consciousness or the New World Order, the New Earth Consciousness and the New World Order. And this requires conscious homework. So I'm doing a little bit of that here just to let you know that to really get clear about what the difference is. So the global currency reset is about rebalancing all of the currencies on our planet to give every nation and every being within those nations a fresh balance sheet to work with. And then each country then is able to decipher how best to support the individuals within their country outside of the confines of a global currency system that we presently have. So it's about freedom of countries as well as freedom of people. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? I have notes to keep me on track, so I'm looking at my notes. I'm not ignoring you. Okay, digital currency. So I want to talk about digital currency. So about 10 years ago, might as far back as 2009, I received an insight about a new currency, a digital currency in the new share economy. I didn't quite understand what the share economy was. We're still working toward that. And digital currency. And I was sitting in my car when this message came in, and I said to myself, this is fantastic and fabulous. I really hope somebody else does something with this, because I don't have a clue about how to start a new currency. So not long after that, I learned about Bitcoin. So I was thrilled to find out that someone else was taking the reins on creating a new currency. And this digital currency exists outside the present financial systems. And it gives human beings an opportunity to exchange without having to go through the banks and having to go through the fiat system, what I call the fake money system. The fiat system is based in for lack of a better word, the slavery of humanity. So our social security numbers were created for the government to borrow against, for individuals to borrow against. We're actually nothing more than numbers that are borrowed against us, and our income taxes are used to pay debt through the Federal Reserve and the banking system. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not the expert at that. Just know that that's what is out there, and that's what the fiat money system really is. It's not true money, and they just whip it up whenever more money is needed. That's why there's such a deficit, because it's not backed by anything. It's actually only backed by human debt. It's backed by our own debt that we create as human beings through our social security numbers. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's plenty of information out there if you want to do the research on it. And so digital currency allows people to do business with each other outside of the fiat system. And essentially, when we use digital currency, we're voting against the fake money system and creating our own autonomy and our own sovereignty outside of that system. I did not invest in Bitcoin at the time. When I tuned in and I asked, I was told it was an interim money system, so I didn't invest in it. However, I've been getting very, very, very strong hit for about the last week to invest in Ethereum, which is a digital currency, and Theta, which is also digital. Those two, from my understanding from the messages that are going very strongly, is that Ethereum is going to be a new way of communicating, and as is Theta. Those are actually communication systems, a new way to be seen and heard across the world. And I can't say they will replace the existing internet, but it is a new way of being able to communicate outside of the present controls. So there's that. I'm actually going to be looking into investing into both of those myself because I'm very curious about them. Back to the GCR. One of the words that you might have heard, if you haven't heard of GCR, one of the words that also is interconnected with that is RV. And RV stands for revaluation. And that is, there were individuals 10 years ago who were investing in some of these global currencies with the understanding that they would be revalued and brought back to neutral standard. And so that's what RV is. And unfortunately, a lot of light workers were told that it was a scam. It is not. And at some point, it will occur. One thing the Guardians have made very clear to me is that we are never given timelines. We're never given time constructs. So I've always asked, well, when is this going to happen? And the response is always, we don't see time the same way that human beings do. So in the higher realms, time doesn't exist. It's just a matter of manifestation. So, but this is, again, coming back to trust. And trust is really, really difficult for human beings because when we come in, we have full trust and faith in ourselves and in the divine creator. But as we learn fear, we also forget how to trust ourselves, and we forget how to trust each other, and we forget to trust the divinity that flows through every single one of us. And instead, we put our faith and trust in other people. We put our faith and trust in systems. We put our faith and trust in governments. And that's exactly what they want. They want us to have our faith and trust in the systems rather than ourselves. So this is about learning how to trust ourselves and trust the choices that we make and know that that's what is best for us. And trust that if you're invested in any of these GCRs and RVs and the concept of NESARA and GESARA coming forward, just trust that that is in the process. There is no guarantee about when. My understanding is that there are certain entities and individuals that have to be removed from the process before it's made available to the rest of us. The other thing to keep in mind is that the new money systems and the new money itself is coded at a fifth dimensional frequency. And the reason, and I was shown this years ago, the reason it's been coded at such a high frequency is that only those of us who are working in the light, only those of us that can raise our frequency up to that high level will be the ones who access it. That is a love-based frequency. So only those of us that can raise our frequency up into full loving and being here in service to the whole of humanity are going to be the ones who have access to this new money. And it's done intentionally to keep it out of the hands of those who are not in the loving. So to keep it out of the hands of those who have been presently controlling the fear-based systems. So what's going to happen is as these new systems are created, the people at the top, which is the masses at the top of the vessel, will have the most amount of money, and the people at the bottom, which is the present, I don't want to say 1% because some of the 1% actually are decent people, but the not very nice people that are presently at the top of the systems will be at the bottom, and they'll get what filters out through the rest of us. So I was shown, I want to say back in 2011, 2012, I stepped out of my house one day and I received a message about these new money systems that were coming. And the vision that I got with this was a vision of Jesus when he was walking through the temple. So I prefer to call him Yeshua because that actually was his real name, not the Jesus is the name that Constantine gave him when he created the Catholic Church. So Yeshua walking through the temples and knocking over the money tables. He was so angry about people paying money, one, for animal sacrifice, which is, for lack of a better word, animal sacrifice is a satanic ritual. And I don't want to get into that, but sacrificing life is not of the light. And also the people are paying money to for the right to go into the temple and to get into heaven. Essentially, that's what that was. And he was very upset about that because no one should have to sacrifice their life or sacrifice themselves to be let in to the goodness of source. And no one should have to pay penance or pay money to get into the goodness of source. We all have direct access to it. So I was shown him going in and flipping the tables, and I was shown that the money tables were going to turn from their pyramidal structures to these vessel structures. And that is what I believe we're going to now begin to see now that we've entered this new earth reality of the fifth dimension. I see it getting closer and closer and closer. So have faith that it is coming. Have trust that it is coming, because it is. The old systems are all going to begin crumbling. One of the things to keep in mind is as these old systems crumble is to stay out of fear. There are a lot of people who are going to see the crumbling systems and become really terrified that the systems they have always known are crumbling. And if you're not looking at from the loving perspective, from the perspective of what's possible and what is replacing the systems, it would be frightening. So it's up to those of us who work in light and who work in love to hold the knowing that the reason they're crumbling is because it's what's best for humanity, and use our healing tools and use our loving tools. There's a reason that we woke up early, that we were given this information in advance so that when the rest of humanity starts to see and feel it, that we have the tools and the resources to be able to help them move through it. Every person who has healing, who has spiritual healing capacities, is going to be called upon to help heal the broken hearts of humanity as lives and livelihoods and structures are lost. Every one of us who have the capacity to see from a higher perspective are going to be called upon to use our tools and resources to help bring people along and help them understand why things are happening the way they are. Because the masses of humanity are beginning to wake up. And that started, what started for some of us decades ago. The masses started waking up in 2020. So beginning now in 2021, there is going to be more and more and more awakening of the masses to what really has been happening under the facade of all is well. So one of the descriptions I often use is to imagine that there's a wound on your arm, and we've been ripping off the bandages and looking at the wounds that are underneath. So decades and decades and decades, we've just been slapping more bandages. Like every president that comes in just slaps another bandage on top of the problem and covers it up and expecting then the next person to deal with it. So under the last presidency, a lot of the disease was beginning to be brought to the surface, and more of it will continue to be now that the bandages have been ripped off, and we have no choice but to start looking at the diseases that are underneath the bandages. And the deeper and deeper and deeper we get, the more painful it's going to be for human beings to recognize and acknowledge. So it's up to all of us who have seen it and have learned how to remedy it within ourselves. We've done our own shadow work. We'll now have the resources to be able to do the shadow work for all of humanity, because really that's what this is. We are now being called to process the shadows and the darkness that exists within the entire human story. Those of us that have been doing the shadow work with our own personal stories, we're asked to do that in advance specifically so that we can help to heal the shadows of the entire collective human story. And they're just now being brought to the surface. Many more of them will continue to be brought to the surface. And that's why we were brought here in advance. And that's why it's so important for each of us to raise our vibration up into love. Love no matter what. Because that's what humanity needs from us. We came here early. We woke up early. We came here as volunteers to be able to help humanity move into that next phase of reality, out of the third dimension that is entirely based in fear, across the bridge of the fourth dimension, which is a very interesting place to be. And this is where humanity's been since 2012. A lot of people have been in the third dimension and navigating the fourth dimension. And then once we raise ourselves into a loving existence, we move into the fifth dimension where all things become possible. So that is that. Regardless of what happens, stay focused in love, stay focused in the vision of what's possible, and stay focused on understanding that no matter what happens, this is our opportunity to create the greatest good for humanity. Okay, I want to talk about Saint Germain's trust. Some people may have heard those terms, and NESARA, GESARA. Those are also part of the New Earth systems that are being created. Now, very clearly, I want to share about Saint Germain's trust. So I turned into Saint Germain a couple of years ago, and I asked him directly. He's actually a very good friend of mine. I communicate with him regularly. And I asked him about Saint Germain's trust, and he told me that Saint Germain's trust is a farce. So for those people who are waiting for Saint Germain's trust to do its thing, for money to come through Saint Germain's trust and then filter onto all of these foundations and nonprofit organizations, this is a farce. It's an infiltration. It is not the truth. So if you do research about the foundations that the money is intended to go through, you will discover that these nonprofit organizations and foundations are not of the light. This is one thing that took me a while to understand, because deception is so good at deceiving, that many of the nonprofit organizations and foundations on our planet that have the appearance of working on behalf of the light are actually not working on behalf of the light. They are a deception. And money is flowing through them to and from each other, almost like money laundering. So foundations exist as a way of being able to avoid income taxes, and which is why the rich pay such small amount in income taxes, because they run their money through trusts and foundations. And when you filter it through enough trusts and foundations, you pretty much don't pay taxes at the end, or very little in comparison to the amount of money that you make. So there are these nonprofit foundations and trusts that have the appearance of being for the best of humanity, when in fact they are not. And it's taken me some research to discover which ones are and are not of the greatest good for humanity. And I highly suggest that you do your research as well, because they, like I said, they have the appearance of being for the best for humanity, when in fact they are almost like money laundering. They exchange between foundations, and they also support systems and services that on the surface look like they're for the benefit of humanity, yet underneath it's really about the control of humanity. So be very careful when you're investing and looking at foundations, that you really do the research behind where their funding is coming from and where their funding is going to, because they are not always from the light. However, that is also going to be changing, because many of the people who work in the light are going to be starting their own foundations, and money is going to be filtering through them in service and support of all humanity, and creating thousands and thousands of jobs for people who want to be of service to humanity. These are through humanitarian projects, and these humanitarian projects will allow people to do what they love and be involved with creating a new world, rather than having to go to jobs that they hate, working for people they don't like. So this is part of the new earth that we're creating, that every one of us is going to be able to do work that we love, rather than doing work that we should do, because one of my favorite quotes is never should on yourself, and don't should on anyone else. So in the new reality we're creating, we're not going to be doing shoulds. We're going to be following our heart and doing work that we love and participating in humanitarian projects that call to our heart, rather than going to regular 9-to-5 jobs that siphon the life out of us. We're going to be doing work that actually grows the life within each and every one of us. So just trust that this is part of what's coming, that these new foundations actually will be based in the light, and it will be doing great works for all of humanity and all life on earth. One of the other things to look at is to recognize the difference between, for example, the systems that are being created for global sustainability, for example. The word sustainability, I love a good play on words. I admit I'm a total word nerd. I hear word and I go into finding out what the original meaning is of a word, because even though we've changed the meanings of words over the decades since the words were created, the core meaning is still there. So I look at the word sustainability and creating a world that is sustaining. And, that's not good enough for me. Why would I want to spend my entire life and the entire rest of the human experience in mere sustenance, when what's really available to us is absolute prosperity for every human being? I'm talking about not just having a world that is sustaining, but an entire earth that is prosperous, because our planet was created to be a prosperous planet, not to be a sustaining planet. So what's really important for all of us to put our focus not on sustainability, but on prosperity. Sustainability is fear-based. It's saying that there's not enough to go around, so we have to sustain what presently is. Where in a love-based reality, prosperity is saying there's more than enough to go around, and we are going to create a world where every person's needs are not just met, but they are fulfilled. Again, fear-based reality is about fear, control, sustaining, security. New Earth reality is about fear, is about love, it's about freedom, it's about prosperity for all life on Earth. And this is about, again, taking a look at everything that comes into our path, getting really, really good at deciphering, is this about fear and control disguised as safety and security, or is this about love and freedom and free enterprise and prosperity? It's really, really good to decipher the difference. And part of this is getting out of the head and really going into our heart space and listening to what our gut feeling says about things, because the mind right now is controlled by fear, because ego has been hijacked by fear. Now, the ego actually isn't a bad guy. Ego actually exists within each and every one of us as a means of self-preservation. Unfortunately, the ego has been hijacked by fear, which is why we have so many issues on our planet. And then rather than letting inspiration take the lead and letting ego feel safe going along with inspiration. So it's important that ego feels safe. Once it does, feeling safe in our own loving environment, it will go along with us. And it will allow the heart to open up. The human heart hasn't worked effectively for thousands of years since fear started taking over our planet. And the goal, the intention for this new Earth reality is that our whole heart begins to heal and our whole heart begins to work to its full potential. The heart light has the capacity to change the world like that. In an instant, our heart light has the capacity to change the world. But it's about healing our heart to the potential that our heart light then moves and waves out across the planet. And the heart has not been working properly because it's been encapsulated by fear, and fear actually creates a disease within the human heart. And that also, when the heart isn't working to its full potential, it's preventing us from access intuition. And intuition is where spirit's guidance sits within us. And the intuition is so intelligent that science actually calls it the second mind. However, it's been really difficult, particularly for the masculine to access, because the masculine mind and the masculine heart has been hijacked by fear, under this disguise of the need for compete, conquer, and control, which is fear-based. The true masculine, the genuine masculine energy isn't about compete, control, conquer. That's in a fear-based reality. In a love-based reality, it's about support, protect, and nurture. I can't think of the other masculine word. I tend to lose it. Support, protect, and basically to help grow. So in the loving reality, the fear starts to melt away. The masculine mind starts to thrive, and its intelligence, its planning and strategizing that it's best at. We need the doing and the planning and the strategizing of the masculine mind, just as we need the creation and the nurturing of the feminine mind. So we are all both of that, and it's really important that we learn how to equally access both aspects of our masculine and feminine selves. The masculine heart begins to open up as fear gets blasted out. The disease that's been created by fear in our heart, and the masculine heart starts to open up. The higher heart and the lower heart, the masculine heart, the feminine heart, all four quadrants of the heart start to work as one. And then the masculine aspects of ourselves begin to access the intuition that every single one of us have access to. My understanding is that the umbilical cord, that we all have essentially an umbilical cord that connects us to the Divine Mother, and that our mind connects us to the Divine Father. It's all the same entity, divinity, we are all divine aspects having a human experience. And so it isn't that there's a mom and a dad, it's the masculine aspects and the feminine aspects of the one that we are all a part of. But one of the reasons that women have had greater access to intuition is because we connect more with the Divine Mother than the Divine Father aspects. And we need to be able to open up our minds, open up our hearts, open up all that we are to be able to access the whole of the divine, the masculine and the feminine, and recognize that the mother aspect of source is just as important in the creation of our reality as the masculine aspect of source. And many of us have been in the process of resurrecting her for at least the past 10 years. I know that's been going on much longer. Actually, I want to say since the early 1960s, which is when the ascension actually began. Ascension is a process, not an instant manifestation. So part of that was waking up the Divine Mother's heart within each and every one of us, so that we have access to all aspects of source rather than just the patriarchal aspects. What else? I've managed to almost speak for an entire hour. Didn't think I could do that. The Humanitarian Projects. So my understanding, and thank you all of you who are commenting over here. I'm brand new at using live. This is only my second live stream, so I'm sorry I haven't also been looking at the comments, but there are some great comments happening over here. The Divine Feminine has been taken away from us, but not anymore. Absolutely, Regina. She is here and very present, and I communicate with her on a regular basis. And I'm not going to cry, but I might a little bit. She loves us so much, more than any of us can even begin to comprehend. And any of us that are mothers know what that feels like, to love our babies, to love those sweet, sweet babies. And that is how she loves us. And we've been disconnected from our mother for thousands of years, and we're not disconnected anymore. And when we feel that connection with her, we know that everything is possible, and we know that we are loved no matter what. That is unconditional love returning to the planet. And it's not the conditions that religiosity has placed on our connection to source. We don't have to go through a middleman to access the divine love that's accessible to every one of us, and the purity of her love that streams from her heart directly into our hearts, and healing our hearts so that this new earth we're creating is made possible. Yeah, so I am so incredibly grateful that I made that connection about 10 years ago, and it's completely changed my entire outlook on what's possible for myself and what's possible for all of humanity. And this this connection to the Divine Mother has shown me that peace on earth really is possible, and it's inside of every single one of us. We just have to have faith and trust in ourselves, and faith and trust in each other, and faith and trust in source, rather than putting our faith and trust into the systems and into the people at the top and the controls that they insist on creating for us, because we are creating the new world. We're the ones that are creating it. We're the ones that are envisioning it. We're the ones that are getting together in cooperation with each other, and we're the ones that are creating this new reality. And we can do it outside of the systems that exist. We can, and I know that for a fact. It just requires enough of us to believe in that and get together and make it happen. Another thing I wanted to mention is that a message that came through a couple of years ago was about collaboration. So we've been living in a fear-based reality where competition is king. It has been the controller of our reality. And about 10 or so years ago, we started moving into a phase of collaboration. Collaboration was part of the fourth dimension as it merged with the third dimension, the convergence that happened in 2012. And what I was told is that collaboration, again, like the digital currency, is a bridge to cooperation, and cooperation is a fifth dimensional frequency. And collaboration, if you could look at it, the word collaboration means basically to work side by side. And I always see like two people in lab coats, right? We're working side by side in a lab. You've got your projects, the other people have their projects, and we're all working side by side, but we have individual projects. And we're collaborating by affiliating with each other and cross-promoting each other's services, which is very, very important to be able to move into the phase of cooperation. So even organizations like WeWork got the message of collaboration. That's why WeWork, other called collabs like that have worked so well. That's why the term collab is now a mainstream term. We create collabs. The next phase, the fifth dimensional phase of creating this new reality, is cooperation. And this is where individuals work together for the same purpose. We each have our own businesses and our own services. We work together within for the same purpose. So one example of those is an organization that I'm a part of, which is part of this streaming that I'm doing right now, which is this organization called Spirituality Gone Wild. So there are 10 of us presently that have our own services, our own websites, our own businesses, but we work in cooperation with each other to support the whole. We're going to see more and more and more of those as we move into this new earth reality, and where reality is based in love, and competition ceases to exist. That's a fear-based. So as competition ceases to exist, we are able to then create these cooperations where individuals win, the organization itself wins, and all of humanity wins. It's a win-win-win for everyone. Let's see. The humanitarian projects. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the humanitarian projects. This new money that's coming in, the new financial systems that are coming, the new financial opportunities that are coming forward. I don't think they're very far down the road. The term that's been used for them is NESARA and GESARA. I don't think they're going to be called that because that's an old name for what's happening. My understanding is that they're going to be called, I don't have the word for it. I did an interview about a week ago where the term for it came through of basically their financial opportunities. My understanding is that the new money that's being brought forth is going to come through humanitarian projects, and that it's going to be explicitly for that reason, so that only people who have a fifth dimensional frequency, a mostly loving frequency, will have access to the money, and that as we receive this money, we're then able to create environments for all of life to thrive. So rather than the old quote, giving people fish or teaching people how to fish, rather than just handing people money and saying, here's some money to make you feel better about all of your suffering and try to buy your happiness, as opposed to creating environments where people are then able to thrive. And so these humanitarian projects is where the money is going to be funded, and then the money moves through these projects to be able to create for the greatest number of people. For example, humanitarian projects that assist the homeless, not just giving people a place to live, but creating an opportunity where people can be involved in building their own home and solving the issues that we have on the planet, rather than having government systems be what controls how the problems are solved on the planet. Because when they're going through government systems, it's all about control. The government systems that want to fix homelessness or fix the air quality and fix the global warming. And yes, global warming is real. I don't want to say global warming, global weather patterns have changed. The reason for our climate change is what the issue is. It isn't necessarily cars driving on the road that's causing. I'm not going to get into the reason that we've had this climate change we're in. Climate change is real. How we solve it isn't through government programs. How we solve it isn't through the global monetary system. That's talking about more taxes for everyone. So if money comes through humanitarian systems, humanitarian projects, we're then able to solve all of the issues on our planet by the people and for the people, not by government programs that require us to pay more taxes. Just putting it out there for you to again look into and use discernment, because my understanding is that's what the difference is. So these humanitarian projects, what I want to share with you really quick is that all of us are being asked to visualize what it would look like if money started flowing with grace and ease through humanitarian projects to and through each and every one of us. And if there's a humanitarian project that's calling to you, to write it down. It doesn't have to be an extensive business, a 30-page professionally prepared business plan. It's about having a very clear idea of, if you were given, I'm just going to throw a number out there. I know this sounds completely insane, but I remember hearing years ago, if time and money were no object, what would you do with your life? And that just felt so ridiculous to me, because my mind could not grasp having so much money, I wouldn't know what to do with it, and having so much time, I wouldn't know what to do with it. In the fifth dimension, that is exactly what we are given access to. Time and money to do whatever we want with them. So you're being given access to freely play in the fields. In this new earth reality, you get to play in the field of what if? What if somebody just handed me $1 million? What difference could I make in the world with that? What if somebody handed me $10 million? What difference would I make in the world with that? And really allow your heart, get out of your head, get out of ego, because ego immediately wants to go in and figure out what it wants to do. For some people, it's what stuff would I buy? This isn't about stuff. This is what would I, from my whole healed, open heart, do with that gift that I've been given? How would I serve humanity with that gift? Who do I love the very most that I want to serve with this time and with this money? And then write out the humanitarian project that you feel called to be a part of. Write out the system that you want to be a part of recreating, because we are going to be recreating all of our systems. We will be recreating them. Here's one thing for people to think about. When we've had this quote forever, right? We are the ones we've been waiting for. I got to tell you, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for somebody else to create the new systems for us. We've been waiting for Jesus to come down out of heaven and fix it for us. We are all divinity. Every single one of us is a stream of consciousness that streams directly with source. We are divinity. When we become the leaders of our reality, when we take the lead, we are divine action. We are divinity in action. We are God sourced through every single one of us in action and in being. So we actually are the ones we've been waiting for. We are, we've been asking for divine intervention. We actually are divine intervention. what we think, what we believe, what we feel, what we focus on is what creates reality. We need to be the visionaries that create the new reality. We are divine intervention. And it's up to every single one of us to really get that and to really understand that. Source is sourced through every single one of us. And when we understand that, all the resources that we need to be sourced through us are given to us. That's what's happening in the new earth reality. All the resources we need to create a new world are going to be coming to us. It requires each and every one of us to hold the vision for that before it happens, not to wait until it happens, but to get busy now, envisioning it, creating it in the visionary process. Visioning works. We know visioning works. It's up to each one of us to consciously envision the world we want to create and the role that we want to play in that new earth, in that new world. And it will start to manifest because so many of us are focused on that. We create the new programming, not the old programming we've been fed. We create the new visions, not the old visions that's been fed to us on television. It's up to us. We're it. We're the ones. So on that note, I wanted to talk about the Humanitarian Projects. There's a website called We the People. Actually, it's a portion of a website called We the People that I wanted to share with all of you. If you have a humanitarian project that's been calling to you, there's a website that you can go to where you can kind of do a brief overview, who you are, what it is you want to be a part of. If you don't have a humanitarian project that you want to run, because not everybody wants to take the lead, and I completely understand that. Many people are here to lead through support, to lead through service, not through taking a leadership position. But if there's something that you want to be a part of, there's this website called We the People, and I'll put the link in the comments below as I finish this up because I don't have it on me. Actually, I kind of do. If you go to transcendthematrix.com, one of the buttons across the top says We the People. And if you click on that, there's going to be a humanitarian pull-down list where you can fill in all of your personal information about what projects you want to be a part of. So for people who don't want to lead a project, there's opportunity for you to be a part of a project that's calling to your heart and to participate in that as a whole, because these humanitarian projects are going to be creating thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs for people who want to be a part of this new earth. So that is it for now. I hope the information that I've provided you helps navigate some of these terms that we've been hearing. And one recommendation I'd also like to make is that if you want more information like this for really understanding what's happening in the world right now, you can go to my personal website at victoriareynolds.com. I have a free book there called Rise Up. And this book is unique. I channeled it last fall. The spirit was like, got to get this done, got to get this out. I've had this idea for probably 10 years, and I was told that it's time to stop thinking about it and actually do it. This book called Rise Up has an entire chapter that's dedicated to understanding a lot of the terminology that is floating around in the world right now. So if you're curious about any of these words and you don't understand, I highly recommend you go to my website and pick up this free gift. Also, in complete transparency, when you get this free gift, you also get put on my newsletter list. And I send out a newsletter every week or so. Sometimes it's not every week or so. Sometimes it's twice a week. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks. It's just whenever I feel inspired to send out a newsletter. My newsletters are not sales pitches. I despise those things. No, I don't want to use the word despise because that's not a very loving word. I personally find them to be almost like an imposition in my personal space. So I don't do sales letters. I do inspiration newsletters. And then information about where to find things that are presently on my mind. So I recommend that you do that. Go to transcendthematrix.com to We the People to fill in your humanitarian information so that you are among one of the first to be notified when the money starts rolling, and that you think about what projects and what systems you want to be a part of recreating. Oh, somebody says transcendthematrix.com is not the correct link. Oh, shoot. Okay. I will get you the correct link as soon as I get off live and I go locate it. I'll put it in the comments. I'll put it in the comments on all of the various places that this video is streaming. It's streaming on my personal YouTube channel. It's streaming on Spirituality Gone Wild's YouTube channel. It's streaming on various Facebook pages. It's streaming on Fearless and Free TV on YouTube, my personal channel on YouTube, and a couple of other places. Anyway, I've got it streaming to like 10 different places. So I will make sure that the We the People link gets put into all of those places. Oh, someone found it. Thank you, Otmar, for putting that in the comments. Fabulous. I appreciate that so much. It's transcendthematrix.com/We the People Task Force. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And I think that's it for now. Yeah, I've given you a lot to think about. I'm feeling very, very called to do more interviews. I have some other people who are also very much involved with these prosperity programs and with the new digital currencies and with the new quantum currency. Oh, that's what I wanted to share, is that the digital currency is a bridge in the same way that collaboration is a bridge between competition and cooperation. Digital currency is a bridge between the fiat system and the quantum system. So there's a quantum monetary system that's being created. That quantum system, again, and when you think about the quantum field, it's at a fifth dimensional frequency. So only people who can raise their vibration up to a quantum level will have access to this quantum currency. And so I don't have the scoop on that. I know that it has been tested. It's been, I believe the testing started about 6 months ago, and some people actually have had their student loans and their mortgages completely, for lack of a better word, obliterated into the nothingness from whence they came, because they're actually based on fake money to start with. I don't know yet how to access that. I do know that these programs will be made available, and that when the time comes and when they are available, the betterment of humanity programs will be made available. I know that I will be made aware of those. I'm fortunate enough to be in the forefront of some of those. I just have to, like everyone else, I just have to trust divine timing and trust that what is best for humanity is what is being brought forth. So I'm choosing to laser focus on the vision. Laser focus now on it being created, because the more of us who focus on it now, the faster it will occur. That's how manifestation works. So I'm focusing on the manifestation of it happening. When enough of us focus on it, we hit a tipping point, and then it has no choice but to manifest, because that is how creation works. I'm going to now let you all go. As always, get bold, be fearless, and live free. Mwah.